What's up, guys? Mitchell Pehlke back with another episode of Pelk Talk. On today's episode, we got Clifford Taylor. Clifford, a tight end at Florida and a famous TikToker with over 200,000 followers. In this podcast, we broke down how he amassed all these followers and how he got to play D1 football. Clifford actually never played football in high school. Listen to find out how he played D1 ball. Don't forget to listen on Apple and Spotify. Enjoy. What's up, guys? Mitchell Pehlke back with another episode of Pelk Talk. Today, I'm joined by famous TikToker and University of Florida football player Clifford Taylor. How you doing, big dog?
Good, man. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Good, man. Good. You out in Florida right now, right?
Yep, Gainesville, Florida. I just got back like an hour ago from Charlotte.
Okay, crazy season, huh? Take us through it a little bit.
I mean, let me just start with camp. Camp. Oh my God, camp was just never ending. It was a little under 2 months. I think it was like 7 weeks. Just every single day, just like it was almost like a 24-hour shift every single day for 7 weeks. But I think the cool thing about this year, because like it was academically my senior year, but it was my second year on the squad. And so we had a new coach tight end coach come in, Tim Brewster. And so I think any tight end that was with the team last year, they know that last year I was a lost soul when it came to like the plays, the formations, because like I said, I didn't play football until I got to college. Like before college, I was just straight basketball.
Yeah.
Football.
In my research, I learned that. We'll dive into that later. That's crazy.
Yeah, there was none of that. So when I got on the football field, I was like, what is this? What is this? Like, what is just the signals? I'm like, what is going on? So a lot of credit goes to Coach Scott, who was my little tight end coach, who kind of helped pave the way. And then when Coach Brewster came in, everything was just like second nature. I knew everything like the back of my hand. So camp compared to last year was a lot more fun. It was a lot more fun because I knew what was going on. I knew what to expect. You know, I could help some of the freshmen and other walk-ons come in, because that's kind of how I've always been. I'm not really one of those like walk-ons where it's just like I just made the team, now everybody just kind of like leave me alone. I'm one of those guys where I take it from basketball where it's like, okay, I'm a walk-on. If I see like another walk-on coming in and he's confused, I'm not just gonna let him sit there and be confused. Like I want him to kind of like blend it so he knows what to expect. So his experience isn't kind of like mine, where I was just like confused with everything my first year. So camp was really fun, but very hard and very long. And then leading up to the season, I even told some of my buddies, I'm like, man, I think Kyle has a good shot, because I could just tell just from the tightness of his spiral, just his throwing motion, the way he was scrambling, it was just a whole lot better than last year. Yeah. Not to mention, I think he had lost like 20 pounds over the offseason. Yeah. So I kind of had a feeling that he was gonna have a good year. I knew Kyle Pitts was gonna have a good year, but I didn't know he was gonna have that good of a year. Yeah. Like the first game. So, you know, some people know like walk-ons, they don't really travel to away games, especially if it's like a conference game. So I'm watching this game and I'm like, all right, well, there's one, there's two, there's three, really? And then when he got the fourth one, I was like, man, this dude is something else. But it was no surprise to me. So we took care of Ole Miss, took care of South Carolina again, Kyle Pitts, you know, 2 easy teddies. Then we went to A&M. Unfortunately, that didn't end so good. And then there was a whole lot of word on Twitter. There was even a false rumor that was out that said that our defensive coordinator Grantham was fired. And I was like, there's no way. I literally just saw him as I walked into our team meetings, like that. Yeah. Add up. And so he stuck around. And then that's when we had the massive outbreak where we had like 30 players get it. And then like dang near every assistant coach got it. Coach Mullen got it. When he got it, I was like, that's got to be karma. Because I think a lot of people remember when we lost to A&M, he infamously said, we're trying to pack the swamp. Now, this is at kind of like one of the peaks of the pandemic. So it was just like, Coach Mullen,
smartest words.
I don't know if you should have said that, man. So he ended up getting it. And then so we were out of football for 2 weeks. Don't get me wrong, those 2 weeks were just marvelous because you got to relax the body, just the apartment. And so those weeks went by, and then we got ready for Missouri. We beat Missouri. Of course, we got in the fight, and I don't know how much time you have if I can go into detail about the fight. But like I didn't even know what started it, because Kyle, he threw a Hail Mary to Pitts to try to get like a Hail Mary touchdown in the half.
Yeah.
I'm looking down to see if Pitts caught it.
Yeah.
He didn't catch it, so I was like, whatever, it's halftime. We got a good lead. So I'm running to the locker room, and then I just see a lot of people start screaming, and then like they start pointing like the other way. I'm like, what is everybody pointing at? And then I just see everybody just fighting each other, scrambling. I'm like, what happened? Like, if you look up the fight, you can see me like on the bottom right, just walking back, like,
what's going on?
What is going on? And then we get back into the locker room, and it was just mayhem. Everybody was ready to kind of like run through a brick wall. So it was real intense. We ended up taking care of them, and that's when Mullen dressed up as Darth Vader, which was so goofy. And then the following week we played Georgia, and now going into that game I was 0-3 against Georgia, never beat them. So to see us finally beat them, it was just like a big like feud. It almost made you forget about the other 3 years.
Yeah.
And then after that, I think who did we play? We played Vanderbilt, then we played Kentucky, and then we played Tennessee to, of course, clinch the East. Played LSU. That didn't work out. Then we played Bama. That didn't work out. And then we played Oklahoma. That definitely didn't work out. So it started off pretty good, and then it ended off a little sad. And you saw, people declaring for the draft, leaving early.
Yeah.
People transferring, opting out. So it was just a real chaotic year. But at the same time, like, despite it being so hard, like, I think going back into the facilities was almost like a breath of fresh air, because it was like, okay, we're almost like essential people, because of people are depending on us to play this game. So I guess the responsibility was pretty special. But like I said, I wouldn't trade my last 2 years for anything, man.
I love that. Well, I'm interested. Obviously, we'll dive more into football later, but I'm just interested in the TikTok game, and that's kind of where I found your name, and you're blowing up, obviously. So how did you kind of get into making TikToks?
It just became one of those things where it's like, all right, this is what I do now. So I vividly remember it was the first TikTok I ever saw, and it was the I Know My Purpose challenge. It's the song by Gunna, it says I know my purpose. And this little white kid, I forget his name, but he did one for being the only white kid on the AAU team. Mm-hmm. It was like giving the players free rides, shooting 3-pointers, being a bench warmer.
Like fundamentals, probably.
And I was like, that is actually hilarious. And then so I started scrolling more and more, and I'm like, no one's done that for football yet, have they? And I didn't think anything of it. I was like, let's just do one. Let's see how it works out. So I did one, and I figured it was going to get like a couple likes. The editing, you could tell. I mean, I had to put the phone down and then back up, because I didn't know they had a timer. So I was like, all right, I gotta hurry up and just do something silly. So I just did this, and
anyway. Around.
And then I got some of the editing down, posted it, and my buddy who loves TikTok, he was like, make sure you use the hashtag FYP for you. And I'm like, what is for you? What is that gonna do? And he's like, that's kind of like the explore page. I'm like, oh, okay, I got you. So I just did hashtag, football, hashtag walk on, and stuff like that. So that was like around 9:00 that night. And then my phone the next day, like, it felt like I left it in the sun for 24 hours.
So hot, huh?
It was hot, and I'm like, why is my phone this hot? Like, I know my alarm is loud, but like, why is my phone this hot? And then I open it, because at the time I had this Boo 6S, I got a 12. 6S? No, I got a 12 now, so I'm good. Okay. But at the time I had the 6S, and so I was scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling for like 5 minutes. I'm like, what's up with this? So I click it, and I woke up, and it had like 100,000 views. I was like, me? Are you sure? And then so my
that's sick.
My roommate at the time, he knocked on my door. He's like, yo, man, I just saw you on TikTok. You're hilarious. I'm like, I just did the one, but I appreciate it. I just did the one. And he was like, dude, you got to do more. And I was like, yeah, I don't know if that's for me, man. Yeah. And then I go to the locker room and everybody's like mocking it. Like Freddie Swain at the time, Van Jefferson.
Everyone saw it just overnight.
Felipe, Kyle, they're like, Cliff, man, we saw your video. It was hilarious. Like all the way to the strength staff. I'm like, how did y'all see that so quick? Like, it was terrible editing. So I'm like, how did y'all see that? And then, so I let that one sit for about a month or so.
Oh, so you didn't post for a month after that?
No, I didn't post for like a month. I was just like, I'll just let that, keep, blowing up until it, eventually like dries down. It got to a point where it got to like 500,000 views. I was like, okay, let's try to reach for that million. Yeah. I don't think it made it, but then I did one. One of my friends was like, "Yo, you need to do one where it's one of those like walked in." Like I think you remember that one.
Yeah.
So the one I did, it was real corny because it was like one of those things where it's like when you finally get your paycheck, and it was just me dressing up as like Netflix, Hulu, YouTube, and it's like walked in. So like I thought that would be like okay. I didn't think it would blow up that much. That did good, and I was like, people really think I'm that funny? Because like I'm like. I think I'm a funny guy, but like not a hilarious guy. Like I think like I do some stuff that's funny. And then I did the one where it was college football players during Christmas break. And that was like my first breakout because Overtime posted it. I think Bleach, I think House of Highlights posted it. I was like, oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh. That's what TikTok can do. I mean, it's crazy how like because I come from a start on YouTube and using like Final Cut Pro, so you got to think so in depth. But with TikTok, it's like you got to dumb down your thoughts and just be more relative than creative. And it's crazy how like that one where you're saying when you're walking with ESPN and Hulu, Netflix, like it's so related, but not that funny. But like that does so well. Yeah. Has that kind of always been your creative mindset? Is just kind of being like, all right, well, other people like this, or other people think like this?
No, you know what though? Initially, no. At the time, I was just doing it like off the dome. I would just like think about it. And I was like, oh, no one's done this yet. Let me go ahead. Like sometimes I'll stop what I'm doing. I'm like, let me do this before someone else does it. I think one of my personal favorite ones was when when the 5-star like gets a car and the dude like pops up from the front of the car and it's like NCAA sanctions.
Yeah,
that one did really good too. So it was just like. Well, now I got to keep this thing rolling. So during Orange Bowl weekend, I didn't really do any TikToks. I should have really. Didn't do any. So I come back to Gainesville and I'm like, what am I gonna do now? I feel like I've done just about everything. And then I did one where it was like players walking in.
Yeah.
Like at 6 a.m. and the strength coaches.
That was so fun. I just saw that.
I was like, oh man. Like I literally thought about that in like 5 minutes, and I'm like, wow, that blew up too. And all of my teammates were posting it, and then it got so bad to a point where they started calling, my teammates and my strength coaches, they were calling me TikTok. They didn't even call me Cliff anymore. They just called me solely TikTok. Like, anytime I walk in, Coach Savage would be like, TikTok.
And that's awesome. That's so funny.
I'm like, all right, I guess that's what I go by now. And to this day, I still don't know how like no one like really stopped me because the whole time I was doing it, I'm like, is Coach Mullen gonna see this? And is he gonna say anything about it? Yeah. But then he was like, nah. So I just kept doing it.
Has he ever said anything about it since you started?
He brought it up. He brought it up one time. When we had our team dinner leading into the season, this past season actually. And he was just saying, like, just be aware of what you post on social media. And then he was just saying, like, make sure if y'all do some stuff on social media, make sure it's, it's safe and it's smart. And he said, Clifford. And I'm like, oh, what's up? What's up? that was the only time he really mentioned it to me. His kids follow me. So that's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. So when that first one kind of hit off, obviously your friends and teammates being excited, was there any like kind of hate or jealousy or not really?
You know what? I'm still kind of waiting for that, because like I said, I've been on TikTok for a little over a year now, and it's like I haven't really gotten like hate as like it seems like every celebrity gets. So sometimes I'll get like little things like oh you're a walk on, you never played. I'm like, that's not an insult to me. That's just the truth. That's the truth. Like, I'm not on TikTok saying, I'm the best, catcher in the world, or I'm the best tight end in the world, or something like that, or like I'm a D1 All-American. I've never done anything like that. So I think that's why people have never really had a problem with me. The thing is, though, it's like I see it all the time. Like I had never heard of what's the girl's name? The most followed girl on there?
Emilio?
Yeah. I had never heard. I didn't hear about her until like last summer. I never heard of her. I heard about Addison Rae. I think everybody heard about Addison Rae, but I've never heard of her. And then I would read like just some of the stuff they said to her. I'm like, dang, like
I know.
Yeah, I guess popularity that really comes with the territory. So
yeah,
that's why
I think girls get it worse though. Like I know I read some of like Addison Rae's comments. It's just like people saying mean stuff for no reason.
Yeah, but like for me, it's just like okay, well I don't ever want to make it to a point where like I do something controversial and it's like okay, he's gonna get hate for it because. Also, not to mention my mom, she's always been pretty much on me with social media. She's like, make sure you make good decisions on there. I'm like,
yeah,
Mom,
it's true though. Cause I think like we're the real like kind of age group to really have it throughout our whole life. Like we kind of got it going in like middle school. And that's when you really start posting pictures and everything. But right now you're kind of on TikTok, you're doing some stuff on YouTube. Is this more of a hobby or more of a career for you?
Man, the YouTube thing, that was just out of pure, just like I had nothing to do.
See, I like that though.
I had stories to say. Man, listen, that when I tell you it'd be the 3-minute videos on YouTube, that'd be taking the whole day.
Oh,
like I was drawing them on this little app on my iPad because like I would look at guys like Swoozy and Bruce Stu. Like those guys are hilarious and they do like paper animation. So I'm like, if I just did a couple of these, man, we'll see how it does. They did okay. They did okay, but it just was pulling my hair out. I'm like, man, like this is, I don't know how people. Well, I mean, I understand how people do it for a living, but I don't know how people can just do it on the side. Like, let's do this here, let's do this here.
Yeah,
like, it takes
so much
time. It takes a lot, and I gotta like break down the stories, and like sometimes I overthink about like, man, I gotta do all the sketching for this. Man, I don't want to do that. And so like I did a couple over the summer and then I just kind of stopped and just went back to TikTok. Like that was my thing. And my signature TikTok, which I'm sure everyone has seen. Matter of fact, where I'm sitting right now, it's kind of like where I did it, the one where I had the headphones on and I was like listening to the music and I did the face and it went from like hip hop to like, was it like Big Time Rush or something like that?
Yeah.
That was like my signature video because that was everywhere. I mean, it was ESPN, House of Highlights, Bleacher Report, like it was everywhere, and it was even on iFunny. Like we haven't used iFunny since we were like what 12?
Yeah, all our iPods.
Yeah, like my little cousin, he was like, "Why are you on iFunny?" I'm like, "On what?" And I was like,
"Oh my god,
yeah, I forgot about that." So it was on there, and I'm like, man, I think I have arrived because it was funny too because that was around that time. That was when me and my girlfriend. Now that's when we broke up the first time. And so when I did that TikTok, I was like, she was holding me back. She was holding me back. She was holding it, but I ended up running back to her, and we're in a great place right now.
Would you say kind of the end goal for you is to do something in front of the camera or behind the camera doing some graphic design work?
Preferably graphic design. I don't know if I could really do the acting, but then again, I didn't think I could do the TikTok, so I don't really know what I'm talking about there. So honestly, I just kind of leave it up to the man above. Whatever he has in store for me, whether it's more with graphics, whether it's more with like doing skits and videos, or even doing videos in the house, like you were talking about. like I said, whatever's in the cards for me, I'll just follow God's plan, and I'll just run with it. So
I love that. Let's hop into some football talk. So kind of walk me through your journey, because I read an article about you, and you kind of hit it on earlier that you never played football growing up. You're a huge basketball guy. I mean, what, you're 6'5", right?
yeah.
So yeah, kind of walk me through that. How did you kind of get into playing football at Florida? I know you played intramural basketball at Florida, and then one of your boys kind of said you should try for the football team. So yeah, kind of walk us through that.
So yeah, like my whole life was just straight basketball. My mom played college basketball. My dad was more of a baseball guy. I like watching baseball. I just never really got into playing it. So like I said, middle school, high school, my whole life it's just been straight basketball. So in high school, we won a state championship, and my freshman year, and my senior year, we won, of course, our conference championship. And a lot of people don't really know this, but my senior year, one of my teammates who was a sophomore, he died. As a matter of fact, what's today? The 6th.
6.
He died on January 21st of 2017. Like, it was 3 hours after practice, and we all get text messages like, "Yo, is Aaron okay?" And people are saying like, "No, he's not okay. This happened." And I'm like, "Huh?" And then I get a call from my dad, and he told me, he's like, "You hear about Aaron?" And I'm like, "Everybody's saying he's not all right." And I'm like, "What happened?" And then he told me like he died, and I was like, No. So I called him. I called my coach, who I was really close with at the time, and he was just bawling his eyes out. I could hear it, and then I just started crying, and it was just like, it was just a whole ordeal. So that passing of, his name was Aaron Barker, by the way. So hearing about that, it just kind of like took it a whole new level, because my senior year, I was kind of having an off year compared to my junior year. I think my junior year was my best year, like stats wise. And then after that happened, I just took it up a whole notch, and we just came together, and no one even predicted us to win our conference title. We ended up winning it. We lost in the first round of the playoffs, but that conference title, it felt like a state title to us, because Aaron wasn't there. He was there in spirit. And so, like I said, basketball has always been my thing, and that was still, I think till this day, one of like my favorite teams, because we were just all so close, like even
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, man. And so I can go into like later on like how that like really hit me when Keontae Johnson, when he collapsed. Like that just sent me, because I had spoken to him, and like Noah and Trey, I had spoken to them a few times. I'm real cool with Scotty Lewis, and that was the first time since I've seen them where I like saw like sad emotion out of them, and it broke my heart. So I was still a big fan of the Gators basketball team. Like I said, when I got to Florida, I was playing intramurals, which was really, really fun. A lot of people sleep on that. And because you'd be surprised, because like these frats that have the intramural basketball teams, those boys show up. Like the frat brothers, they all show up to the games and act like it's a college game. Like they'll act like the Cameron Crazies, the Rowdy Reptiles. Yeah. They go crazy. So I played intramural basketball for 2 years, which is really fun. I ended up playing intramural flag football with some of my buddies my sophomore year, which was the first year that Mullen was there. Because freshman year, I like to forget freshman year. Freshman year, we were horrible. We were 4-7. McElwain, we got beat like 52-3 against Georgia or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when Coach Mullen got here, you could just feel like the culture change. And then while they were winning, me and my buddies were winning in flag football. And I think one night, one of the guys who was on the team, and you could tell, because like, when you see these athletes, they have on the team slides, the team sweats, the team jacket, and stuff like that. So yeah. I noticed he had all that stuff on. I'm like, oh, he must be a player. Pretty cool. And that night, I just happened to have one of my best flag football games of my career. I had like 4 touchdowns for like, I'm gonna exaggerate, like 300 yards.
Yeah.
So that was very cool. And And he came up to me and he asked me, he was like, have you ever thought about playing football? And I was like, in another life maybe, but not in this life. I'm just used to being one of the 90,000 in the swamp.
Yeah.
And he said you should really go for it. And I'm like, what would I even play? And he said tight end. And when he said tight end, I was like, dang, you know what? My dad, his buddies, and my uncles always said that I would be a great tight end.
Really?
So I was like,
that's fun. That's
yeah. And I was like, it's funny you say that. So I got his number. We stayed in touch, and he's like, let me know what you think. And I was like, okay. So I talked to one of my best friends who was on the team at the time. His name's Quaylen Crum, linebacker. And I was like, yo, man, I was just talking to one of your buddies, and he was saying that I should like walk on. And he was all in for it. He was like, do it. He's like, it'll be the best decision you ever make. And I was like, okay. And he was telling me, like, don't get me wrong, it's going to be a lot of hard work, a lot of commitment. And I was like, look, man, I'm so used to that from high school, middle school, those after school activities, man. I'm used to that. So he was like, you should do it. So I called my mom and I'm like, Mom, I think I'm going to play football. And I could just hear it in her voice. She was like, what? He's like, yeah. I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to try to play football. And she kept saying, are you sure? Are you sure? Because, she didn't want to see her baby get concussed or anything like that. So are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. And so then I talked to my dad. He was the total opposite. He was all on board for it. He's like, what are you gonna be? And he's like, I guess a tight end. He was like, I could hear him like clapping in the phone. So I was like, all right, well, my dad's here for it. So from, I want to say, what really sold it for me was the LSU game, because like that's when I was still thinking about it. I was like, I don't know if I want to do this, but that game sold it for me, because that's when we had the game-winning pick six to win the game. That was Joe Burrow's first year. Yeah, Swamp went crazy, and I'm like, man, I want to do this, man. This is cool. Yeah. So from that point on,
so how did that kind of go? Did you email one of the coaches and you kind of just went out for a tryout?
The guy that I spoke to, his name was Vernell Brown. He was a former Gator. He was the director of like student athlete development for the team. So I reached out to him and I was like, hey, I'm interested in playing. And he was like, yeah, Cliff, I heard about you. I'm like, how did you hear about me? I just introduced myself. And then so he asked if I had any film. And I was like, oh, this is where the dream stops, because he asked me if I had any film. I was like, I got nothing. I got basketball if you want to see that. So he was just like, yeah, it's like, I showed him and he's like, yeah, you got some athleticism. We're like, we'll stay in touch. So I was like, oh, okay. So there's still a chance. And then I get a call like 2 days later and I'm like, hello. And it was a Gainesville number 352. I'm like, hello. And he's like, hey, this is John Clark from the Florida football team. How are you? I'm like, so like, I'm like a kid. I'm like, I'm good. I'm like, how are you doing? He's like, good. It's like, we hear you want to try out, and it's like, come to the Gator room this day and that day, and we'll get you we'll get you in for a tryout. And so I hung up that phone. I was like, oh my god. So
that's so cool. Oh my gosh.
So, and I was like, man, I'm really living a dream here. So fast forward to about February after they won the Peach Bowl. And fortunately, I didn't have to go through the off-season workouts, because those are the worst.
Yeah. I read that because your school kind of interfered with practice, right?
Yeah.
You kind of just came on like when the season started in the summer, right?
Initially, like when I tried out, and they told me that I made it. Not to mention the tryout, it was during this thing what they call the dead period, where you're not allowed to like use a football or anything like that. Yeah. So I was like, so just showcasing our agility. I'm like, oh, I got this. And so it was like 40 minutes, and they had us doing all these drills, and I was going hard. I was like,
that's good.
And it's crazy because it was only like 4 of us at the tryout. It was only like 4 of us. Me, my friend Michael, who made the team too, and our buddy came in, and my friend Kyle. They didn't make it, but yeah, it was like 40 minutes. It was like 20 coaches around the 4 of us, just like watching us do these drills. And it's like, come on, big man. I'm like, okay, I think I got a shot here. And so we finished the tryout, and the John Clark guy that called me, he was like, "What's your class schedule?" And I was like, this and that, this and that. Because before they were like, "Okay, we'll let you guys know tomorrow if you made it or tonight." And then he just whispered, he's like, "We'll see you tomorrow afternoon." And I was like,
Damn, that's so cool.
and then so I give it a day to announce that I made it, because I'm actually very glad I did, because it would have looked really bad. Because he told me, he's like, "You made it, but your schedule kills you." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" He's like, the time you have classes totally interferes with the time they have practice, the time they have meetings, all of that. So I was like, "So what does that mean for me?" And he said, "Well, what that means is you gotta wait till summer A to walk on the team." So I went from happiness to heartbreak in the span of like 30 minutes. I was like, I gotta wait. I gotta wait some more. And while I was doing that, my buddy Mike, who made the team, was like putting snap stories and everything. I'm like, Mike, I really hate you right now.
Yeah.
And
That's had to
so
be.
I was like, yeah, so I just patiently waited. And a couple of days in summer A go by, I'm like, this man forgot about me, didn't he? And then next thing I know, hello, hey, it's John Clark again. Is this Cliff? I'm like, yes. And so he was like, "Come in tomorrow. We're gonna get you. We're gonna get you all these tests you got to take and your physical and all that." I'm like, "I'll be there bright and early." So
That's awesome, though.
I get there. I go to the training room, and in there it's like Van Jefferson, Freddie Swain, Tyree Cleveland, Felipe, Trey Grimes, Pitts, Lucas Kroll at the time. I'm like, oh my God, I'm their teammate now.
Yeah.
So I go in, do all the tests, and they're like, "Okay, you're welcome to the team." So, and the first member of the staff that I meet, Coach Savage, and he's like, "Hey, how you doing, big guy? You ready to train?" I'm like, "Yeah, when do I start?" And he's like, "You train tomorrow at 9:30. I'm like, perfect. So I said, me being an early bird, I set all my alarms at like 7:00. I'm like, I am gonna be the first dude in this workout. I wasn't, but I'm gonna be the first guy in here. And so at the time, I stood at 6'5", 210. That was my initial weight.
Yeah.
It only took one summer and one training camp, and I got to 240.
Damn, really? Is that what they're shooting for you?
Yeah, that's what I told them my goal was, like, to get stronger, to be able to, to block these big boys like when it's time for camp. Little did I know, it was like there were 9 tight ends on the team already. I'm like, oh man, I might not ever see the field.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget it. So it was my first meeting with the tight ends, and I'm nervous as I don't know what. So I sit in the back, and Coach Scott at the time, he said a joke about Kamari Gamble, and I kind of chuckled, and then he said, what are you laughing at? And I was like, who, me? And he's like, yeah. And he was like, man, you shut the what up. I'm like, yes, sir. So I was just sitting in the back, and I'm just looking at all these schemes and all these plays, and it looked like straight Morse code. It looked like straight out of like a manual. I'm like, what am I looking at right now? Like, I know there's supposed to be 11 guys on the field, and I know that, he can run this, he can run that, but you got names for it? So
yeah, that had to be hard for the playbook for the first time.
Oh, dude, it was a nightmare. But fortunately,
you feel better now that you kind of got a year under your belt, huh?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Once I had that year under my belt, I was like, yeah, I got this. But that first year, shout out to our GA tight end coach Julian Alonso. He was, without him, man, I probably would still be a lost soul. He taught me everything I needed to know, from formations to schemes, concepts, why we run the concepts. And then not to mention walk-on, who was a senior last year, Dennis Gross, who, I'm still very close with to this day. He showed me the walk-on ropes. He told me, where to be and what to do and what not to do. So he definitely showed me the way. So like I said, that first year, plays wise was rough, but like football wise, scout team wise, doing a lot of stuff, it was cool.
Yeah. Well, I got a last question for you. I just kind of wanted you to tell the fans, how football was this year with COVID. Kind of give them a little inside look.
Well, there were lots of tests, a lot of COVID tests. It was at least three times a week. The way we approach the locker room is different. You know, offense has their time in the locker room, defense has its. Like, there were hardly any times this season where we were like all together. The only times we were like really all together was when we were getting ready for the game and during halftime and at the end of the game. That was like the only times we were all together. Most of the season, like, coaches would be like, offense, go in the locker room, defense, go get dressed and, you know, get tape and, you know, get whatever you need for practice. So I think it was really, really a challenge. But then again, I think that really like brought a lot of us closer together, because I could tell, like, in the beginning of the season, like, the chemistry was, you know, not really there. But after like playing with each other for a while and, you know, just getting to know each other, it just kind of all worked well. Kind of went south at the end of the season, but, you know, that's just the business of college football. That's how it's gonna be.
Yeah,
But like I said, I wouldn't trade these past 2 years for anything, man. So
That's awesome.
I'm real thankful for it.
That's awesome. Well, Cliff, man, I appreciate you coming on, man. You seem like a great guy, and we'll definitely keep this relationship going. So I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, man, sounds good. Appreciate it.